couldn't let Media Day go by without getting the good word from Vincent Goodwill from Yahoo Sports, who, as you can see, is at Bucks Media Day with Giannis Antetokounmpo holding court right above Vinny's left shoulder there. Vinny, let's get right to it, man. You've heard what everybody had to say. Dame is in the building. Giannis is there. Expectations are sky high. What is your big takeaway from Bucks Media Day? What did you hear and what did you process that maybe some other people did not?
I don't know if I processed something that other people didn't. I think it was fairly obvious, some of the things, especially Giannis coming out and saying, hey, it doesn't make financial sense for me to come out and sign an extension right now, just because of the function of the CBA. Everybody's looking at it and saying, well, hey, since Dame is here, sign the extension now. But there's an $80 million difference between him signing an extension today and doing it in the offseason after you have a full postseason playoff run with Damian Lillard and everything else. Maybe it'll be on the heels of a championship. But I do think as much as they were lamenting and talking about what Jrue Holiday meant to their franchise and how much they were going to miss him, they were downright excited that Damian Lillard is here. You know what I mean? Like, this was a whole new energy. I talked to a bunch of people just off to the side, and they were talking about just the new energy that's in the building. Not that it was stale for the past 4 or 5 years. You can't win a championship and have it be stale, but they were talking about literally just the excitement. Giannis is running around dancing, and Damian Lillard looking around and just sort of taking everything all in. Like, this is a new building, a new experience for him. You know, just even a couple of days before, he barely had time to really process all this stuff, Smith. So I think what you're seeing is like a lot of new energy. What you're going to see, or what's going to play out, I think, is I wonder what type of start they're going to have, because the expectations always were championship, but now it's really championship.
Mm-hmm. So this is what I'm curious about, because you reference
from ESPN and Jim Orzowski and all the ESPN
I'm about to say,
let's
just make it a party. No, I was gonna say though, but when it comes to Giannis's future, because this was very much the Bucks saying, "Hey, we hear you, we see you, we got you, we got Damian Lillard for you. If you're concerned about our commitment to winning the championship, watch this." Is it just a matter of more money to be made later, or is Giannis still kind of sort of in wait and see mode? I guess, is it about the results, or was it about the team and the organization being aggressive in pursuit of those championship results? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't think he's necessarily going to sign an extension or not relative to results. I think it's always process related. You know what I mean? Like, you can't sit up somewhere and ask the question about, hey, are we committed to winning the championship, when you've been the best team in the NBA record-wise for the last 5 years and you have a championship to show for it. So I think the process of, hey, some of these guys are getting older, let's make sure we're augmenting them with younger pieces, and then you go out and get Dame Lillard. You know what I mean? Like, you go out and get a superstar, but a superstar who's making a lot of money, going to make a lot more money in the next 2 years as that extension that he has kicks in, which is an affirmation from the front office, from the ownership, as the CBA becomes far more punitive, that we're going to do everything we can within the rules to make sure that we have the best talent possible. It's not quite like LeBron putting that outsized pressure on every organization that he plays on. It's a little more, you get more flies with honey than you do with vinegar type of thing. But the pressure is still there. I don't think you play to the results, but I do think you play to the process and make sure. Now think about it like this, man. How do you think Giannis' reaction would have been if Dame had gone to Miami?
Yeah. No doubt.
I mean, would he have viewed that as, hey, we did everything he could, or management would have said, hey, we weren't on his list? Would he have still viewed that as being good enough, or would he have accepted it? You don't know.
Doesn't sound like he in that mindset of like, oh, we tried, we did the best we could. Okay, you mentioned a different energy in the building. Not that it was stale, but a different energy with Dame there and Jrue Holiday out. What's the reaction with Jrue Holiday now landing in Boston, of all places? Because I know externally, I, like a lot of people, immediately vaulted the Bucks to favorite status in the Eastern Conference. Then the Celtics said, hold on, and went and got Jrue Holiday. How do the Bucks see this matchup now? And how do you see it in terms of who should be favored in the Eastern Conference?
Well, I'll tell you this. The last time Drew Holiday and Damian Lillard met up in a playoff matchup, that was New Orleans, Portland, I want to say in 2018. And that did not go particularly well for Portland. Like Drew Holiday had the clamps on everybody going on there. So, and add to the fact, look, Damian Lillard did come out and say, look, I'm not going to be Drew Holiday. I think he's the best defensive guard in the league. He would know better than anybody. He knows he's going to have to try a little bit more on defense, but he knows that he's not going to be that guy. Now, for Drew Holiday's part, someone did say on the podium, Drew Holiday's going to be giving us hell. Like, they all know what this is. You know what I mean? He can switch on virtually everybody. He can guard almost all 5 positions at his height. And you know that they're going to switch and put Drew Holiday on Giannis at a point, and he's going to, sit under that shoulder and try to, knock the ball away. Like, he knows this team better than anybody that could possibly know him. And then you have the Boston Celtics, who knocked out the Milwaukee Bucks the last time they played in the playoff series. So I won't call it the seeds of a rivalry, because we don't do rivalries anymore in the NBA. People are too soft for that. But you will have a competitive and arguably contentious playoff matchup. What I will say to you also, Michael Smith, is do not count out the Miami Heat in the Eastern Conference. That's all I'm going to say. We always seem to dismiss them, and they always seem to be there in May. I'm just saying, let's slow our roll. It would be nice to say, hey, one of these 2 teams, Milwaukee or Boston, would be in the finals, and I won't have to be in South Beach when it's raining and, the weather's terrible and anything like that. And, nobody wants to be in Miami in June. We always want to hang out in Milwaukee and Boston.
Keep the faith. So I hope. So this is the opposite of slowing my roll, because this is the first time you and I have talked about this. We have not texted or talked about this on offline. I, like many others, hey, listen, you can hit me with the 4. I was talking to Kurt Helin about this a minute ago. You can hit me with the 4 championships that Steph and Clay have won. You can hit me with what Jokic and Murray just did. But I would come back with, well, yeah, because Giannis and Dame have never played together. So they didn't have the opportunity to do what those other 2 guys did. I'm one of those people that believes that they instantly become the best duo on paper, obviously not resume because they haven't done it together, best duo in the league. What say you?
I tend to believe that Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic still maybe have a bit more of an edge because their games complement each other perfectly, and we saw it in a high leverage situation. Sure. I would tend to go there. I tend, if you've done it, I tend to give you a little bit more of the edge than the hypothetical. But I do agree with you that watching Damian Lillard maybe on the possibility of a 12-foot string with Giannis driving and Dame being in his line of sight on the weak side, that could be tantalizing. Let me say could be. It is time. That's scary. Okay. Yeah. I don't know how you defend one or the other without completely compromising your defense. So I'm not poo-pooing this at all. Trust me.
Yeah. Before I let you go, and we probably have to pick this conversation up another day, but now that the dust has settled and you've written, as usual, brilliantly about it on Yahoo Sports, how do you feel about, because you and I went back and forth a while back about what the Blazers owed Damian Lillard. And how do you feel about how everything transpired, now that everything's kind of sort of come out in the wash, various reporting, whether it's your own or Chris Haynes or what have you? How do you feel about how everything went down in Portland as it relates to Damian Lillard ending up in Milwaukee?
I mean, look, they got the best deal that they can say possible. I do think that some of the framing around it, adding DeAndre Ayton to the lot that Portland got for Damian Lillard while forgetting that Yusuf Nurkic was involved in it, it's a little bit of myth-making, right? But I think as a general thing, in the end, I do think some mistakes were made. I do think there were some regrettable actions, maybe from both sides, that they would say, once you take emotion out of it and everything else. I mean, the loyalty that an organization has to a player goes as far as you pay him. And that's, I think, what this is kind of shown. I do think that Dame was in a different situation because he had multiple years left on his contract as opposed to being an expiring deal. So it gave Portland a little more practical leverage. And I do think that he wound up being in a place, even secondarily compared to Miami, that he wanted to land. Like, they didn't send him to Siberia. They did send him to a place like, I do
Right.
laugh, Mike, when people say, hey, y'all, we are upset at the possibility of Damian Lillard going to the Eastern Conference champions in Miami. But instead,
Right.
we're going to send him to the team with the best record, and nobody's going to say a word.
Right. Telling you, it doesn't always have to be conflicting agendas. You know what I mean? Like the player can get what he wants and the team can get what he wants. Doesn't have to be either or. In what some might call the end of the player empowerment era, I tend to disagree, but that's a different conversation for a different day. My main man, Vinny Goodwill, appreciate the good word, brother, man. Thanks for joining me from Media Day. My man, boots on the ground, Vinny Goodwill. Talk to you later, brother. Be good. Kurt Helin, it feels like it has been forever since you and I caught up, but it feels like just yesterday that the NBA season ended with the Nuggets taking the title. But here we are, Media Day. You are joining us from Playa del Rey, from Clippers Media Day. Lots to talk about with the Clippers, lots to talk about around the association. But let's start where you are. Who's not there? Who it doesn't seem like is going to be there anytime soon, if at all, and who also was not in attendance at Sixers Media Day, and that is one James Harden. Are we going to be held hostage collectively as James Harden seems to be being held hostage by Daryl Morey in Philadelphia? How long is this going to drag on?
How uncomfortable does he want to make it? Like, I don't know that it's bad for us, because I feel like you and I should just go make some popcorn and sit there and watch this, because you saw the video from his party, right? Like, where he's got the club holding up signs where Daryl Morey's a liar, like at signs in the club lately. Like, isn't he going to make this a complete cluster? Like, it's just going to be.
Then why not show up? But then why not show up to Media Day? Like, if you really want, like, we know James Harden could do that. Why didn't you just show up? Make it even more uncomfortable.
I think he's got to eventually he has to. The problem is he can't just hold out, because the way the CBA runs, if he holds out for 30 days once the season starts, he actually loses his free agency leverage. He actually is, at some point he's got to show up, but I think he can show up partway through camp. And I don't know, man. I don't know if he's going to break the fat suit out again. Like, I think it's going to be, I think it's got to be one of those situations. I will tell you that they're not talking about him here, and everybody I've talked to, not just here, but like around the league, is like, there's just zero traction. Like, nobody wants to step into this and take him on right now. So unless Daryl Morey wants to trade him for like a rack of shoot-around basketballs, like, there's just not an offer.
Okay, so either he shows up and plays, or he shows up and plays. Yep. Sounds like sounds like those are the options.
He might not have a choice, but he can do that and just make it uncomfortable, so uncomfortable that they will take a crappy deal. And the Clippers would love to have him in. He'd be a good fit. And there's probably some other places we could come up with. Like, they'd take him, but nowhere near the price Daryl Morey wants to trade him for. Like, you can one first-round pick and some. They're not going to give up Terrence Mann. Like, it's just going to be some flotsam. Like, it's just going to be filler, and that's not. That sets Philadelphia back, because you've got Joel Embiid needs to win a ring, right? He even said today, man, I'm here. I want to win. This is about winning for me. It's all about winning. If you can't just like park for a year, right? You can't just like this. You can't take a gap year with Joel Embiid right now.
Right. No, because the Sixers are getting close to, if they aren't already in, the position that the Bucks were in with Giannis when they got Drew Holiday, and again this offseason. But back to Harden for a second. Is it Clippers or bust? Because I could have sworn there was some talk about Miami, Harden being a fallback option for Miami if, in fact, as it turned out, Damian Lillard didn't end up on South Beach. So could Miami get in the mix?
I think they could. That'd be an interesting mix. Like, what does that trade look like? They're going to have to. You'd have to send Kyle Lowry out to match salaries. Would they put Tyler Hero in there? They've got some other guys that they could throw in. Like, but again, you're going to get lowball. Like, I don't know if they throw Tyler Hero in. Like, why give up Caleb Martin? Caleb Martin looked good in the finals, right? Like, in the playoffs. Like, I don't right now. The offers are going to be such crap. Daryl's stuck, man. It's like,
and it's not a
I mean,
culture
would you
fit.
also? By the way, would you? Yeah, that's part of it. Like, do you want him on your team, Michael? Do you want him on your team?
I don't want him on. Personally, I don't want James Harden on any of my teams. And listen, he's talented, but I don't want to pay him what he's making or be in the same situation at every team. It always ends badly with James Harden. It's going to end prematurely, as in first round, maybe second round, and it's going to end badly. That no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So no, I don't want those problems, especially for what he costs. Having said that, Miami, it just doesn't feel like the right fit from a culture and a chemistry standpoint.
Well,
so
there's some club owners club owners in Miami who can make a killing, but
that's fair. But the Clippers, though, but I guess it does make sense for the Clippers. Like, if it's going to make sense for anybody, it does for the Clippers, and maybe they know it. Or if they're not careful, they end up like Miami with their tail between their legs, like Miami did with Damian Lillard, thinking that, it's going to be us and nobody else. The team doesn't have any other leverage.
I'm here because of that. Because like our whole preseason series is a thing of like, we got to come up with a better name than this, but it's essentially make it or break it or do or die, right? Like, I'm trying to come up with an end of the shot clock. Like, pass or shoot doesn't work. I'm still trying to come up with the right one. But the idea is, like, for the Clippers, it's now or never, right? Like, they've got to make you want to extend Paul George. So yes, and I think Miami's that's the one reason it could work, because they're very much a win now team. Yeah, it's coming Wednesday. Knock on wood. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the idea.
Don't overthink it.
Now or never.
Don't overthink it. Yeah.
Don't overthink it. Okay.
Don't overthink it. Yeah. And that's coming from an overthinker. Don't overthink it. Like, just go with now or never. It works.
All right. So we're gonna. So the now or never series is going to be just that, though, and this is Milwaukee. Milwaukee's on their, Timberwolves, a whole bunch of teams. That's part of the reason we're doing it. There's a whole lot of do or die, now or never teams this year, and the Clippers are like 1A, man.
Who's 1B?
Oh, I don't know. There's so many. Philadelphia's got to be there, though. I mean, we're talking about them. I've got them later in the summer because I want to see how or later in the camp because I want to see how Harden plays out. But that clock's ticking with Joel Embiid, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah. It seems like he's gonna force the issue sooner rather than later. All right. Still got to unpack what's happened, what's transpired over the last few days with Damian Lillard and then with Drew Holiday. Let's go reverse chronological order, because I think when Damian Lillard landed with Giannis in the Bucks, it felt like, well, the Eastern Conference is Milwaukee's to lose. Appreciate you, Drew Holiday, but they upgraded offensively big time with Damian Lillard. Then the Celtics say, okay, we'll raise you and we'll go get Drew Holiday. So who you like better, Boston or Milwaukee, as we sit here and now?
It's funny. I was texting with somebody this morning and trying to come up. Like, I'm torn a little bit, but I'm going to lean Boston. I mean, what Boston did, they had to do, because you remember the Celtics traded away Marcus Smart this summer to Memphis, where, by the way, I like that fit. Like, that's a good cultural fit. They need a guy like that in the locker room. But trade away Marcus Smart, bring in Kristaps Porzingis. Well, welcome to Damian Lillard pick and roll all day long. No offense to Derek White, who fights hard to get over screens and is a pretty good defender, but I'm going to torture Porzingis in the pick and roll, right? Like, I'm going to go at him. Drew Holiday helps negate that. He is maybe the best in the league at getting over picks. He is a really physical defender. He is one of the handful of best perimeter defenders in the league. So, like, now you've got somebody. They had to make a move like this to match up with Damian Lillard, because I'm with you. It was like, oh wow, guess we're going to be in Milwaukee in June. Now it's like, well, it's really close between those teams, isn't it? I mean, are they both better than Denver now?
It's funny you say that. Are they both better than Denver? The easy answer, and I think the right answer, Kurt, is no. Because Denver has the best player in the world and the best duo in the league, based off of what we just witnessed, a historic finals run by Jokic and Murray. But The reason I say it's the easy answer and the simple answer is because I was thinking about this whole best duo conversation. Because when it happened, I was like, oh, name me a better duo. I'll wait. Name me a better duo than Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo. I'll wait. And then everybody come out with how about the one, that won 4 championships in Golden State? Or how about the one that just, put up numbers never before seen in the finals in Denver? It's like, well, okay, sure. And maybe they're the better duos because Damian Lillard and the Greek Freak never got a chance to play together. Now that they do, It's called a projection. It's called a prognostication. Kurt, some of us like to call things before we actually see it, and everybody's saying the same damn thing. Some of us, our minds are blown by 2 30-point scorers joining forces and complimenting each other as perfectly as these two guys do. What was your original question? Oh,
yeah. By the way, you nailed that point. Giannis and Lillard mesh. Like their games don't get in the way of each other at all.
No,
right? Like
no.
Lillard forces this. By the way, that 2-man pick and roll. It's like they ran it some with Middleton when they won the title. That 2-man, like Giannis is a roll guy with Middleton on the weak side. Middleton's now your third best option. Dude, how do you defend that? They're going to be impossible to stop this year.
You asked me if they were better than Denver. Look, I'm not taking anything away from the Nuggets. And you and I both, we were Nuggets guys throughout their entire process, okay? And Jokic guys throughout his entire journey to the top of the mountain. Look, man, Milwaukee, if Giannis isn't hurt, and if it was the 5th, we'd all be drunk, and if the rest. If Giannis isn't hurt, do they lose to Miami again? Maybe, maybe not. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of things that went wrong in that series for them. So I still think Giannis is in the conversation for best player in the world with apologies to Nikola Jokic. And you add Damian Lillard with Brook Lopez and Chris Middleton and Bobby Portis. I mean, coaching we think will be better. We hope. That's the big unknown in Milwaukee.
Yeah,
we think we'll be better from a
question.
That's right. More than talent, I think, is coaching in Milwaukee at this point. Probably, I think the same could be said for Boston. There are some questions still about Boston's bench. Boston bench in both ways. Boston, let's get back to that. Boston's depth on the bench and who's calling the shots from the bench, I think, are both still questions for Boston. Outstanding questions.
Absolutely. Look, Boston, I think, might have the best 6. And I think where Denver falls a little bit is Bruce Brown is gone. Man, that one stings because he's making the steal at the end of Game 5. He is so key to them in the playoffs. So that one stings. Good for him. He got paid. Everybody kind of thanked him on the way out the door. It wasn't acrimonious, but man, I think Boston has a great 6, but I'm curious if they become the place people want to go now, like off the buyout market or, Reggie Bullock just got bought out. Like, are those the kind of guys that they can get now to come in because you're like, man, I can get a ring there. Like more than the Lakers, more than some of the places that are always draws. Like I think Boston could get some of those guys now because you're right. After their first 6, Horford, I assume, comes off the bench. It's a pretty big drop off. Nothing against Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser and all those guys, but it's a pretty big drop off.
I mean, listen, you're right that they had to answer. They had to go get a Drew Holiday, and Drew Holiday is a great get for them. I hate losing Time Lord. I really hate. If you're the Celtics, I hate losing Robert Williams. It's like you got to give up something to get something, but that's you talk about stings. Like that's going to sting, and I don't love their depth. Even though I know Brad Stevens talked about people that people aren't talking about have impressed them internally, and maybe that depth will develop from within. But if they feel really top heavy, and I don't like their interior defense as much as I did a couple of days ago. Perimeter defense is better, so maybe it won't matter.
Porzingis is big. I think you're banking a lot on Porzingis and being healthy. And by the way, I've kind of wondered this too. I think I put it out there on X now, not Twitter, whatever we're calling it this week. Does Time Lord, by the end of the season, supplant DeAndre Ayton in Phoenix? I don't, and maybe he doesn't start games.
You mean
I'd rather close.
Does he?
I mean in Portland. Did I say Phoenix? I mean in Portland.
Yeah.
But I might not start games with him, but I might rather close games with Robert Williams over DeAndre Ayton. It'd be interesting.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Portland, that is an interesting question. Also, is Portland done? I mean, I saw
No.
Cronin had some comments about wanting Malcolm Brogdon to still be a part of this. They needed his intangibles, veteran leadership for this young roster. Does Brogdon stay put, or is he on the move to the Heat, to the Clippers, where you are?
He's on the move somewhere. It might be closer to the deadline. There's a lot of his value. Remember, the Clippers pulled out of a deal to get him this summer after looking at his medicals with the elbow. So he might have to play a little and prove, hey, I can do this. Like, I'm still good at, But if he can do that, I would be, let's put it this way. The deadline is February, whatever it is. I didn't look this year, 15th usually around there. I'd be surprised if he's in Portland after that, because some team is going to need point guard depth or guard depth. And Brogdon's the sixth man of the year, man. It's not like he's chopped liver out here.
Yeah. Wait a minute. I just realized I didn't get your who's the best duo in the league right now in your mind. I had my rant. I didn't get your vote.
Yeah, no, I would have to go with Dame and Giannis, even though we haven't seen it yet. Just as with all due respect to Jokic and Murray, like I just think that they complement each other so well that it's just I don't know how you stop that duo. So I think that's the best twosome. Brown and Tatum are probably in that mix. I'd have to think about if I'm missing somebody. LeBron and AD. If you have a
LeBron and AD. Durant Booker is there in the conversation.
Durant Booker's close. LeBron and AD, man, I need a DeLorean with a flux capacitor in the back like 5 years ago. Yes. Right now, I'm not quite sold. Yeah, I'm still going to go Lillard and Giannis. I just think that is such an unstoppable force. And Giannis at the peak of his powers. And Dame he's 33. Scored 30 points a game last year.
I mean, and I love Jamal Murray. I mean, like, let's say this is how I would do it. Again, we can't go off of what they've done together because they never played together. It's just a projection, right? It's but I love Jamal Murray. I really do. I'm not taking Jamal Murray over Damian Lillard, nope. And I think Jokic and Giannis kind of cancel each other out for the most part. Edge to Jokic because of what he just did, on the biggest stage, but Giannis got one of those. It's not like we haven't seen Giannis do that. It's not like it was that long ago where Giannis didn't do in the finals what Jokic just did. Maybe not to the same extent, maybe not in the same way, but Giannis was the de facto best player in the world until Jokic took that mythical crown with his playoff run. I mean, so it's like, but in a vacuum, it's not a slam dunk that Jokic is better than Giannis. For me, it's a slam dunk. I'm taking Lillard over Jamal Murray. Much as I love me some Jamal Murray, I'm taking Damian Lillard. So you put those two together, to me, you got the best duo in my mind. The duo that you are covering right now, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, now or never.
Now or never.
I guess with that duo, how much are they going to play together is the question. We know they're good when they do play together. How much are they actually going to see the court together?
That's the $1 million question. They didn't bring. I mean, that's where Harden or somebody like Brogdon at least helps, because Harden, for whatever you want to say about his game and decline and what's coming, and not wanting to pay him in the future, been durable over the course of his career. Played plenty. That's the $1 million question. And by the way, it got asked. It was asked about Kawhi Leonard. Like, hey. Even the league's trying to get pushed, the player participation stuff, trying to get people to play. And after he's like, I don't know what the policy is. And somebody explained it to him, because no league policy is going to make me play more or less, man. I want to play. If I can play, I'll play, but it's going to be, my body's going to tell me type of thing. Yeah. I don't know, man. Are they really, let's put it this way, Michael, I'm off the Clipper bandwagon. I'm just off it. On paper, sure. But as much as it's on paper, I just don't believe they're going to get there, especially in the West now, that with Denver at the top, Phoenix looking like they can challenge them. The Warriors and the Lakers are both in the, if our guys are healthy mode, like they're probably better. Like I don't think I can lean into the Clippers anymore, man. I did that last year. I'm out. I'm off.
Yeah, get off that roller coaster. Get off that narcotic, man. Last thing, you mentioned the Warriors. Like, one storyline I'm already tired of, and I blame CP3, who I put on for over the years. I'm really tired of this CP3 role conversation about starting, coming off the bench. Like, bro, you ain't starting. Well, first of all, he may start out of necessity. You know what I mean? If some of these older guys miss games. Yeah, exactly. There's Draymond Green. But, like, that whole conversation about, like, his role, it's like, yo, you're trying to get what they got 4 times over. Why was that, or even is that, still a discussion about Chris Paul's role when he's just trying to be along for the ride? When you jump in on their bandwagon, you don't get to take the wheel unless asked to do so.
And what you need him for, what has hurt them, even the last year when they won the last title victory, they were negative. Their point differential was negative
Steph Curry
when Curry was off the floor.
Steph Curry minutes, that's it.
If Chris Paul, even this Chris Paul, whose game has slipped a little, he just makes them better. And that's what you need, right? So it's just, I think he's mentally got to get there. And like you said, with Draymond's ankle thing, he's going to miss the first weeks of the season. So that lets you ease into it a little bit. But I think he's just got to accept it. He's just got to accept it. Because what are you going to do? Bench Looney?
It would just be a shame if this was actually an issue. Like in the grand scheme, like, we're too old for this. That's literally we're too old for this. We're too old to be having conversations about who starts when it's far more important who closes games.
Yeah, and he's going to close some. It's going to depend on matchups. But at the end of the day, that 5-man unit for the Warriors is really good, and they just need you to come in, play your role, do this. Chris Paul 6th Man of the Year vote's coming, and just go with it, man. Just jump in both ways.
You are still one of the greatest point guards of all time, regardless of whether or not you started for the Golden State Warriors in 2023. What are we talking about?
Exactly.
It is always
we're not knocking you down
pleasure.
He's not going in on the second ballot at the Hall of Fame now, man.
No. He's still behind the velvet rope. He's still in the conversation. He's still in the club. Appreciate you, brother, man. Thank you so much, Kurt. Enjoy the Now or Never tour.
The Now or Never tour. I think I'm leaning into that now. I think that's what we're going to go with. Yeah.
It'll be good. Whatever you call it, it'll be great. All right, man. Be good.
Take care.
Charles, say the Texans had ended up with the first overall pick of the 2023 NFL draft. Would they have for sure taken C.J. Stroud, or would they have taken Bryce Young like the Panthers did at number 1?
Well, they're going to tell you they would have taken Stroud.
Right, right. He was always their guy.
Yeah, of course, right. I mean, and through the first 4 weeks of the season, there's credence to that being the argument. Who knows? I mean, look, I can tell you this. They had a high grade on Bryce Young. There's zero question about that. And I think they felt like either of those players landing in their laps at number 2 would have been absolutely fine with them. But I do think, given what CJ Stroud has done through the first 4 games of the season, they've got their guy. They've got the, perfection. Really, they exactly what they were looking at, at that number 2 pick, being a franchise changer, someone who could make them viable in the AFC South immediately. That's what Stroud's been. I think it's stunning, the start he's off to. I did not expect this. I lived here. I saw him in the preseason, and I did not see this coming.
Well, I will say, I won't pat myself on the back. I will rub my back ever so slightly. I thought he could be the best of the big 3 just based on the passer that he was. He was the most prototypical. As much as a pocket passer, a traditional big arm pocket passer remains the prototype in the modern NFL. One would argue that Anthony Richardson is more the modern prototype than C.J. Stroud. But nonetheless, I thought Stroud, because of his pedigree and his performance combined with his measurables, could be the best of the 3. But I never imagined that he'd be off to one of the best starts in NFL history, especially given all the narratives that worked against him. In no particular order. Ohio State. How many good quarterbacks have come out of Ohio State?
Right.
His offensive line in Houston, which has been banged up all season.
Yep.
No weapons to speak of, especially compared to what he had at Ohio State. not a runner. And as you addressed in your latest for Yahoo Sports, the good old S2 test. He had so many narratives working against him coming into the season. You and I, not only were we wrong, everybody but the Texans was wrong about C.J. Stroud, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because, as you said, those narratives, I mean, I think it went even beyond that. It was when you would talk to evaluators, they would say, look at all the clean pockets at Ohio State. Like, what's he going to do when he's facing these dirty pockets? And when you talk to people who were leaning into CJ Stroud, they would go, just put on the Georgia tape, okay? Like, let's just go ahead and put on the Georgia tape, watch him play against.
We thought that shut everybody up. That was his moment. Only as funky as your last cut, right?
Yeah, but I mean, look, let's go ahead and foreshadow the 2024 NFL draft.
Okay.
Caleb Williams is going to get nitpicked. Okay, Caleb Williams is going to have people talking about his clean pockets, and there's
he's too short.
Drake May. I mean, every all these quarterbacks, Brock Bowers, everything tight end at Georgia is too short, and I mean, all these players. They're going to get negged, right? They're all going to get negged as we get into the draft process. CJ Stroud was no different. I think for me, though, what really changed the narrative for CJ Stroud in that draft process was when that S2 information came out, right? Like you started to hear mid to late April. We had been talking about this cognitive, test that was supposedly taking over for the Wonderlic. We heard all about, this is why Brock Purdy's good and other players aren't, and all these different things. And then Stroud, this percentage, the percentile gets leaked out there, the alleged 18th percentile, whereas I think Bryce Young was like 98th percentile, right? And I don't know if we might have talked about it privately, whatever. I'll share it now. I remember there were people who said to me, like, they didn't even think he's finished the test. They were just like, yeah, there's no way. There's no way that guy scored the 18th percentile. They're like, he just didn't finish the test. Something happened clearly there. Maybe he didn't want to do it. Maybe he took it on a rough day. Who knows? But they said it just didn't fit. For everything that you saw him accomplish at Ohio State, for everything that he brought to the table. I had people who were like, you're watching him. It's not like he's not reading defenses. He's reading defenses.
Yeah.
He's got the quick release. He can navigate the pocket. He's calm. He's developed. He's played against NFL caliber players. They're like, and we're all going to lean into this test now. And there were even some conspiracy theorists after the NFL draft in personnel departments who suggested, did the Texans leak that score? Did the Texans put that out there because they wanted to make sure he was there for them at number 2?
So not the teams drafted later that wanted him to slip. The Texans wanted to make sure that the Panthers didn't take him one.
It was a conspiracy theory.
The only greater juxtaposition in their size was the S2 test between C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young, who I want to touch on Bryce Young with you in a moment. But staying with Stroud for a second, the other thing that's interesting is which narratives we choose to attach ourselves to, or in this case, which pieces of the puzzle we choose to focus on. Because if you want to talk about tests within the pre-draft process, I know Anthony Richardson broke the combine in terms of vertical, in terms of 40, in terms of physical testing, and he threw some bombs. But nobody had a better combine than C.J. Stroud. Granted, Bryce Young didn't participate, but in terms of just throwing the football, placing the football, he put on an absolute show, but it got overshadowed because Anthony Richardson is a freak show. So why didn't anybody make a big deal out of that, out of his combine, out of Stroud's combine? You know why? Because he just did what we saw him do for years at Ohio State, which is put the ball wherever he wanted to put it.
But Mike, it's a ceiling league, right? Isn't it a ceiling league?
Yeah.
And so many evaluators
upside.
Right. They're looking at CJ Stroud and they're saying, and even Bryce Young to some to a point, and saying ceiling. Like I hear a lot about Alabama players, like I'll hear scouts and general managers will tell me, in different language, but they're getting to the same point. There's not a ton of upside in Alabama players. They're pro players.
That's the best they're going to be.
Yeah. They're at like the 90 to 95% development point. We're not going to get a ton more out of their game. And go look at the majority of Alabama players that come in the NFL. They'll be good, but none of them explode on the NFL level, or very few of them really were not realized in college. Well, CJ Stroud, I think there was some of that. It was, played quite a bit, played to that ceiling. Like, how much better can he get? Whereas they looked at Anthony Richardson and said, this guy, this guy's just scratching the surface. He could be all world when it's all said and done. CJ Stroud, yeah, maybe he turns into a great player. He's pocket passer, prototypical kind of guy that we've seen throughout the years that the league, less so at the quarterback position. Now it's a more versatile position than it's ever been. But over decades and decades and decades, CJ Stroud was ultimately going to be your guy. I mean, there were a multitude of reasons why I think people were banging on him, but let's be honest, he went second. I mean, for
still
all
went
the
two in the draft. Yeah, right.
Still went two. I mean, for all the crap we were hearing and everything, he still went two. So he went two, came out of the box, just had a brilliant first 4 games, and that's the player that gets drafted second overall. I think the juxtaposition now is just that when we talked about that S2 score, which clearly I think now we can say was probably blown out of proportion, the ranking was, well, Bryce Young's at the top and Anthony Richardson was second and CJ Stroud was third. And then now we're just flipping it. It's like CJ Stroud's the best rookie quarterback, Richardson's a close second, and Bryce Young is struggling, in Carolina. The draft process is literally, I swear, sometimes it's just made to drive us insane.
I know. I still love it, though. I still love it. This is why a lot of people hate it, but I still enjoy it. We got too much time on our hands, the problem. Too much time to make up stuff and to start to spread, innuendo and whatnot. All right. So Texans got a guy. And look, you're right, he went 2, but nobody thought he would be historically good his first 4 games out. But small sample size. But I want to talk about the Texans. We talked last week about Dolphins Twitter and how they deserve to have their day in the sun. Every fan base is unique, obviously, but there's something really special about the Texans fan base, right? And rightfully so. Their team has been banged on quite a bit over the years. And I go back to the end of the Bill O'Brien era. And they go 4-12 in 2020. That's the year O'Brien got fired. They go 4-13. They go 3-13-1. And they go through David Culley. They go through Lovie Smith. And a lot of criticism, including from yours truly, about neither of those guys being truly set up to succeed by that organization. A lot of criticism directed toward Nick Caserio. There were the Josh McCown whispers. There was the Jack Easterby shadow general manager storyline.
What an era.
Anything? Right. Yeah. And yet here we are. Oh, and if you want to go back to the DeAndre Hopkins trade, it has just been for the last several years, and to say nothing of the Deshaun Watson mess. Oh, by the way, bury that. The Deshaun Watson mess. It has been, for the most part, a laughing stock of a franchise the last several years, and yet here they are, grinning from ear to ear if you're a Texans fan or a part of the organization, because is there a chance they make a run at another AFC South title, which they have not won since 2019, given the state of the rest of that division? Because Jacksonville doesn't look awesome. They don't look like the Jags that ended last season right now.
Well, and they beat the Jags on the road. I mean, they beat the Jags in their house, right? It was a impressive win. It wasn't like it was a fluke. And by the way, let's not forget, may he rest in peace, Bob McNair, inmates running the prison. I mean, that was not exactly a great point in Houston Texans history. I mean, like I feel for the fan base. I live here. They've clearly been through it the last several years, and especially when you have a situation where Watson off the field, courtroom drama and lawsuit drama. This city was in love with Deshaun Watson, and to be rejected by a quarterback who obviously was rejecting ownership at that time. And again, this is all we're talking about from a football standpoint.
Yeah. When he just requested a trade. Right, this is pre-sexual assault allegations. He requested a trade and sat out an entire season.
Yeah. And you have a fan base that feels rejected, because they're like anyone, they want to be accepted. They want, part of the reason why Detroit loves Dan Campbell is because Detroit feels like Dan Campbell loves them. That's what some fan bases want from their football team. So I think they went through it from that standpoint, feeling like we can't get out of our own way. We had a good thing going here, and it all fell apart in the worst possible way. So for it to turn around like this in fairly quick fashion, okay? Like, I mean, when
and I forgot, not only did they hit on C.J. Stroud, like DeMeco Ryans, homecoming, team that drafted him, looked like they got a pretty damn head coach. They cycled through head coaches, looked like they landed on a pretty damn good one. I'm sorry, I didn't want to forget about him.
No, and I would say that's really where this started. I truly believe, like, to me, I think the first, we'll see, let's get through a larger portion of Nick Caserio's tenure, because now it feels like it's going in the right place as from a general manager perspective. But we saw them make decisions with the head coaching spot where we're like, what the hell are they doing? When they went and got DeMeco Ryans, you felt, I think, based on our private conversations, I think people across the league said, hey, they made the right choice here. They went and got a coach that league-wide is respected, connects to the roots of the program, brings a mentality to the table that, by the way, as much as we're talking about CJ Stroud, go and watch, okay? Watch Sunday's game defensively against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like,
man, they
they're
fly to the
playing,
football.
Yes.
They play like San Francisco.
They are playing like they're on fire. Like they are just the absolute physical mentality. It reminds me of what Robert Saleh sticks into the Jets, right? His passion, his emotion, just his ability to get guys up defensively to go. You're seeing that in Houston now. But I do think, as much as we want to talk about Stroud, Will Anderson, a number of the things that they've done right. Stroud telling them draft Tank Dell. Like, I worked out with this dude. Yeah. He's a player, and you're like 165-pound wide receiver, and then look. But it really started, I think, with Ryans and getting back to the fundamentals of what at one point was great about the Houston Texans, and Ryans really stands for that.
If you were drafting right now, having said all that, today, small sample size, even smaller for Richardson because he's been hurt. You're taking Richardson or Stroud first between those two guys?
I'm going to take Richardson. I mean, like, I can't.
You're just like the outside. You're just talking about a ceiling league.
Mike, the difference, though, is that I've seen him in the NFL. I'm not betting on an unknown commodity coming out of Florida that I haven't seen step on an NFL field. For me, now, if you had asked me this before we kicked off in week 1, I would have had a hard time answering either. I'd have been like, can I have Bryce Young? Like, please, like, why do I got to take one of these other two guys? I really want Bryce Young. But now that I've seen them all on an NFL field and I've seen them navigate with things going wrong, right? Now I know what Stroud looks like when neither of his offensive tackles plays, right? And that line's jacked up. Now I know what Bryce Young looks like when his offensive line's jacked up. Yeah. And now
what Richardson can actually throw. Like, like all the talk about Richardson him being so raw. Yeah.
I'm just telling you, one of the, and I told you this before, and I'm going to bring this up throughout Richardson's career. When I talked to a general manager, and we were coming in the season, it was literally the kickoff week, and I said, we were talking about the quarterbacks, and I asked them about Richardson, and I told them about all these people who told me, you can't make that guy a top 5 pick because he's got to play right away, and you can't be for the organization. And he said to me, he goes, and again, I'm paraphrasing here, but it was along the lines of this. He's like, I watched him go 6 for 17. He's going to go 6 for 17 a bunch of other times. It was the most fun 6 for 17 that I ever watched. I don't think he's going to go 6 for 17. I think this guy is actually, as long as he doesn't break himself, that's the one thing I'm worried about. Is physically, everybody keeps telling him, you can't play physically at that, at the gear you're playing at and not get hurt. We've seen the concussion, but he's got the arm, but it's not just the arm. He's got the arm, he's got the athleticism, but he's been decisive. He's thrown it at different angles. He's read things. He's navigated it. It's just, there's so much more there than I expected right out of the gate from him. So to me, I don't think I'm betting as much on stealing the unknown ceiling. Now I'm like, wow, I kind of starting to understand where that ceiling is, and it's exactly where the people who loved him most thought it would be.
AFC South, man, they might have 3 good young ones. And
football is so crazy. It's like, we bang on. We're like, NFC South sucks. Oh my God, AFC South, Jacksonville's going to run away with it. Who wants to watch AFC South football? Like, and then the season starts, and we're like, this is crazy.
Right.
Like,
South got something to say. I'm gonna come back to the AFC South in a second, but let's go to the NFC South and Bryce Young. We touched on it a second ago.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's early. It's 4 games, but I mean, so that's all we got to go on is a small sample size. I'm sure the game's not too fast for him.
No.
But it does literally sometimes feel too big for him. He's already been hurt once, and he took a hit that looked worse than it was. Somebody grabbed his helmet and kind of got twisted. It wasn't, but every time he gets hit, I hold my breath. Right. Every time he gets hit, because he's not Kyler Murray's height, but not his speed and elusiveness.
Yeah,
Kyler Murray, for the most part, did a good job of protecting. Kyler Murray never really took big hits. Bryce Young seems to get hit, and it's just like it scares me when he gets hit. And obviously, the supporting cast, the offensive line hasn't been great there. Again, doesn't have great weapons, which we said the same thing about C.J. Stroud, and he's figuring it out. Right. Are you at all concerned, or is it simply just too early, at all concerned about Bryce Young? Not just because of Bryce Young's makeup and measurables, but as we know, it has everything to do with where somebody lands and their circumstances and how they get beat up early on. He's got a great coaching staff, an accomplished coaching staff. So there's a lot to like about Carolina, but so far, like you said, he's a distant third compared to the other two guys.
Yeah, well, I mean, Ike Ekwonu, we were told, like, oh, this is going to be the guy who comes and anchors the offensive line, the first-round pick last year, and he's not where they would want him to be at this point. The offensive line's messed up, and to me, it's not all about physique, but I remember the first time I laid eyes on Kyler in person. And I remember I was like on an NFL field when I went to their camp for the first time, and I was like, wow, he does look small out there. But physically, he's a compact player. Yeah, he's like, Russell Wilson, quote unquote small, but Russ was always kind of a big, small guy. Yeah. And as you said, Kyler, he had that ability to avoid big hits. He was just quick in space. There were things where you're like, okay, I can see he can avoid some of these hits. Whereas Bryce, I don't know if that's the case yet. He's thin in a way that when you see him in person, you're like, oh, he is. When you see him out there on the field, you're like, if that guy gets hit a lot, you could see injuries coming into play. But again, this goes back to clean pockets, right? Everybody complains, clean pockets, clean pockets, clean pockets. Alabama, a lot of clean pockets to be had. Alabama, a lot of guys who run open, in their routes. Like when everyone was evaluating Tua, they're like, I don't know how to evaluate this guy. Every receiver he has is 5 yards open when he throws the ball to him. So what the hell am I supposed to make out of this film? And for the most part, he's playing with clean pockets, although he takes these massive hits because he puts himself in these situations. But Alabama, that evaluation, I think, is still the same for Bryce in terms of the NFL rookie quarterback experience is all about what you make right that is going wrong, okay? Brock Purdy, great example. One of the greatest things that Brock Purdy has done in San Francisco from the second he got the job was making wrong go right, okay? And people would say to me, well, Iowa State was not always a lot of clean pockets of Iowa State. There was not, he dealt with wrong on the college level and often made it right and raised the level of that team. So, you look at Bryce and you're like, how often did he have to make wrong right? It doesn't mean he's not still the player we thought. It doesn't mean he's not going to hold up physically, but you don't want him to go into a situation, as you said, where the surrounding skill position pieces, lower third, right? The offensive line, clearly lower third right now. And it has impacted his level of play at this point in the season. I'll just say it's 4 games in, right? Disclaimer for all these guys. It's 4 games in. Who knows how we're going to feel in another 13.
4 games. Okay. Does the same thing apply? Now, this is different, but use that 4-game thing against you. Back to the AFC South, the 4th AFC South team, the Tennessee Titans, became the 2nd team to hold the Cincinnati Bengals to 3 points this season. I don't really want to talk about the Titans or disrespect. What's wrong with the Bengals? Just 4 games, or have they lost the benefit of the doubt? Because it feels like something's broken with that team, and I don't know that they even know what it is.
I don't think Burrow's healthy. I don't care what anybody says. I think he is not right physically at all. And I don't think you pull a calf muscle the way that he did, sit out the amount of time you do in the preseason, potentially re-aggravate it. And again, they're kind of playing games with like how bad that really is. And, you and I have covered the league forever. No one ever tells you how bad it really is until February. Until we're,
right. Until the book comes out.
Until the book comes out, or we're at the combine or the owners meeting, and someone's like, "Hey,
he had a torn calf all year, right?"
Yeah. No, I'll never
so
forget.
Much for that injury report.
I'll never forget sitting at the bar with someone from the Patriots, and we're sitting there, and he just says to me, "Yeah, Tom Brady's shoulder was completely destroyed the whole season," and I was like. He was never on the injury report the entire. I was like, so clearly I would not know that. I think there is some of that play right now with the Bengals and Burrow. And I take my cues from Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase is indicating Burrow's not where he needs to be. It'll get
there. He told
him
to sit out.
Yeah. He did till what? Week 5, right? Like that's also concerning. When a wide receiver who's clearly as tight with Burrow as Jamar Chase is, comes out in the preseason and says, go ahead and sit out until week 5. I'm like, it's a specific number. And like, what do you know? And like, it raises all kinds of.
But not that the devil needs an advocate, but I'm gonna give you one anyway. All right. Like, look, man, is it 3 points twice in 4 games unhealthy though? Like, is that the only issue? I mean, they can't protect him. Is that the only, is it that bad? Like,
offensive line's not playing well, right? They're not running they're not running the football. I mean, there were times people forget that when Cincinnati was really clicking, when they were max level Cincinnati, Mixon was running the ball well, the offensive line was playing well. Everyone was healthy. Chase was healthy. T. Higgins was healthy. T. Higgins not healthy now. I mean, you had Boyd, everything was clicking, well oiled, right? And now the quarterback's not healthy. The offensive line's not playing well. You're not running the football. Your number 2 wide receiver's banged up. I mean, what do we expect at this point? Like, it doesn't. Now, I expect more than 3 points. I'm not going to lie about that. And I expect an offense that's more, a little more open than it is right now. It just feels very conservative, feels very close in. We're not seeing a lot of the deep stuff. We're not seeing a lot of the big splash plays that they became their bread and butter, when they're playing at their highest level. But I just keep drawing the line back to Burrow. I don't think he's where he needs to be for them to play the way that they have in the past.
And if we're looking for more explanations, they also haven't had a favorable schedule in terms of opponents. Browns defense is good. Ravens division opponent, they're always, good on defense. Rams know this team well, obviously. They're competitive on defense. And the Titans, especially against the run and up front, Titans are pretty solid. Not that that's an excuse, but maybe it's 4 games, but it's getting late early, as they say. 1 and 3 holes aren't easy to dig your way out of when your quarterback is clearly compromised. Okay. Last week we spent a lot of time talking about the Bears, and you wrote about the convergence of winless teams. And the history of 0-4 teams receiving the number 1 overall pick since those Houston Texans back in 2002 were awarded the number 1 overall pick. More than 70% of the number 1 overall picks have gone to 0-4 teams. Mm-hmm. So now here the Chicago Bears sit with both picks attached to 0-4 teams, their own, and the Carolina Panthers. Plot twist, though. Justin Fields looked like who we thought Justin Fields would look like against the Broncos. So do we pump the Caleb Williams to Chicago, Justin Fields to elsewhere talk after his performance against the Broncos defense that gave up 70 points last week? Or is Caleb Williams still in play for one of those top 2 picks? Or do the Bears where's this all going now that the Bears have the inside track? They got two lottery balls, so to speak. They got the inside track on the number 1 pick. Where's this going?
How many more times can the Bears play the Denver Broncos defense? That's what I want to know. Let's start there. Look, if that is the Justin Fields that we get the rest of the season, then I don't think you have to move off that guy. Okay? Because like it was the dynamic making plays off script. I thought the touchdown that he threw, which was essentially at the goal line, right? We're like, okay, he's going to run it in. This is what he does.
Oh, yeah.
And he stopped right at the line of scrimmage, and he throws that little, pop pass into the end zone. I think it was Cole Kmet. I don't remember who caught it, but it was one of those plays where we're like, oh,
it's Caleb Williams-esque.
But yeah, almost. He's got like the skill level of this guy that, he looked like he was in sync playing the way that we expected he, would play. He looked like the player that was the second half of last season, Justin Fields. And like, I'm like, all right, this is the starting point here. Yes, you lost the game. Yes, you're 0-4, but this is the starting point where let's see how you build this out. And then we can talk about whether or not Caleb Williams realistically could be in play for them. And if not, by the way, I would like to say this. If he's not in play, having the number 1 pick this is the year to have it and to trade it, by the way.
I was saying it was very Caleb Williams-esque, that play where he was being real creative near the goal line that you're talking about.
Yeah, and if that's the player we get, from Fields the rest of the season, right? If that is the starting point now, right? If that is putting your foot in the ground and you're developing him out from this point on, and he is that version, then I don't think you have to take Caleb Williams number 1 overall, even if you get the pick. Now, I would also argue if we get that Fields, the number 1 overall pick probably isn't going to be Chicago's. Maybe that's Carolina falls in the slot. Yeah. But if that Justin Fields to me makes the Bears a more competitive team. Now, again, it was against the Denver Broncos. Defense has been horrible. We know all that. But there's really 2 ways you can look at this. If Fields is what we thought he could be, you're in a great position because you now have a quarterback that, look, if you want to move off him, someone's going to come with an offer, right? He's going to be a viable trade product for you. If you want to keep him and you have the number 1 overall pick, whether it's yours or Carolina's, this is the year to have that pick, whether you want to take a quarterback or trade it, because there will be a lot of assets to move in that number 1 overall spot. I would argue we're not talking about 2 first-round picks. We're talking about 3 first-round picks, maybe players, the biggest draft bounty you could think of to move into the number 1 overall slot. That's what it ultimately represents for the Chicago Bears. So it's just all about, are you going to get the Fields who showed up against Denver? Or was that a product of Denver? Was it a product of, Fields playing better, but Denver also being terrible? Now we have to calculate what the Bears are working with moving forward with Fields.
And that's if Caleb Williams comes out. And I'm saying that to troll you. I'm only saying because I saw you going back and forth on Twitter. Charles, it's not about whether or not the team is good enough. My point is not about whether the Bears or shit show or whoever gets the number 1 pick, because that's why you got the number 1 pick. That's not my point. My point is, as much financial sense as it may make for him to leave USC, which he probably does, odds are he does, but as much financial sense as it makes for him to start his rookie contract and get NFL money, the fact that he has NIL money there's a precedent at USC. I don't know that Matt Leinart was the lock to be number 1 that people thought he was as a junior. He went number 10 when he did come out. But dude, these dudes love being in LA at USC. Caleb Williams just strikes me as the kind of guy that just says, no, I just want to do what I want to do. Damn what y'all think I should do. And I feel like staying in college. That's all. That's all I'm saying. It wouldn't shock me if he just decided to buck the trend.
Go to the NFL, buy a mansion in LA, in the Hollywood Hills.
What he should do. You are saying there's no chance that he doesn't come out. Is that what you're telling me? There's no chance?
100%. Okay.
100%. Okay. All right.
Clip this Monday, October 2nd. Okay. 1:47 Eastern. There is no chance in hell Caleb Williams stays at USC. And I will get real quick. Number 1, injury, right? The injury issue. He could go back. I don't care what your insurance policy looks like. The magnitude of risk with an injury is insane. Number 2, NIL money. I don't know, man. Do NFL players?
It's a drop in the bucket by comparison.
But do NFL players make NIL money? I feel like NFL players might make
occasionally.
Occasionally,
yeah.
Is Travis Kelce making NIL money right now in the NFL? The 78 Travis Kelce commercials I saw last night. Pretty sure NFL players make that NIL money, right?
Okay.
Number three, your free agency clock starts earlier, right? Mm-hmm. Number four, you're not playing what is essentially, other than that NIL money, free football anymore. You don't have to go to class. You don't have to do all this other stuff.
You can take ballroom dancing.
You don't have to walk around campus. You don't have to do, like, as much as he might like LA and the USC experience, trust me, he will like the NFL more. Okay? He will. I can promise.
Okay.
The hotels are better. The cars are better. The affection is better. Like
that's you call it the affection. The affection. I like how you put that. That's a good word. That's a good, clean, neutral word. The affection.
I don't see Taylor Swift in the USC skyboxes, right? I mean, I'm sure USC doesn't have skyboxes because of that crappy stadium. But anyway, I don't. I'm just saying, like, there's everything in the NFL is better, and I don't care if it's in Chicago or wherever.
If you're wrong, you have to trade me all of those 24 firsts you've accumulated in our dynasty league.
Come on.
Well, you got the 25 draft on lock too.
Something on it. We can put something on it, but we're not putting that on. Not crazy.
Charles, I appreciate you, man. I'll talk to you next week. Thank you.
All right, take care.
Hey, thanks so much for kicking it with your main man, Michael Smith. Be sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel, but also subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Rate it, review it, tell your friends about it. Oh, and be sure to follow me on social media.